Hi everybody. I have been trying to make this video since Monday. I I wound up, my Monday was so busy. You're my cat going through here crying. It's just 'cause she's in that loving mood right now. So just ignore her. But I watch a lot of YouTube channels. If you check my channel list out, you'll see I'm subscribed to a lot of channels, and so I see a lot of other people's videos and mingle with the comment section and all that. And so many people talk about what's wrong with the organization that we don't really talk much about what you have to deal with personally when you leave the organization. I've touched on it before that that there's anger and frustration and fear and a whole list of things that you have to feel and go through. When I left the org, there was no internet, and really had no choice but to just go on with my life, and all the people I knew were just in the past, period. And so I just had to make a life for myself. But these days, with YouTube and the internet and Facebook and all that, people have contact with XJWs before they even leave the organization, when it wasn't like that when I left. But it takes a long time to get over those things. The fear of people in the world, and the challenges of making new friends, and how hard it is, and just so many things. And so I just want to kind of explain what happened to me. It took me at least 15 years to get the Watchtower muck out of my head. I had gone on with my life, yeah, but I still had that anger and fear and frustration and low self-esteem and the shame and everything that they hammer into you. So when you leave, they've pre-programmed you with the things like, well, if you leave the org, you're leaving God, you're leaving Jehovah, and you're gonna die in Armageddon, and the big deal that they hammer into you from the time that you're old enough to walk. They hammer into you that the people in the world are bad associations. And there's a lot of things you got to sort out in your head, you know, who's a bad association and who isn't. When some of the people that you deal with in the organization itself may not be good associations, they may be bad associations themselves, even though they're a fellow Jehovah's Witness. So when you get out, you're out in the wide world, and gotta treat people different. And I know one of the biggest things that I had to deal with was being critical of other people, just like the Jehovah's Witnesses are today, where they hammer into the members that everybody's such a bad association, you know. And so even when it came to be, you know, making friends, I wasn't really sure how to do that. My self-esteem had really suffered, and it was affecting my relationships. And so I did go to therapy for that. Basically, it was the self-esteem thing, because I always felt such shame inside me. You know, they want you to go away and feel shame, and they want to shame you into being quiet when you leave, which worked pretty well back then, but not so much now that there's the internet. You know, people they're a lot bolder now and speak up, which is very courageous and brave, especially when you still have family on the inside. It's a lot of people toss around, should I or shouldn't I speak up, seeing as I still have family in there. And I understand that. I had my parents were in there. But my parents, once I got disfellowship for what I did, then my parents didn't talk to me anyway. So it's not like I lost out on a whole lot. I mean, I found other people that filled spots in my lives, and I focused on trying to be the best parent I could, and I knew I wasn't going to raise my children in that isolated society, because it's detrimental to your well-being when you are out in the real world. Because like I said in my video a long time ago, I carried a knife in my pocket for the first 6 months probably, because they had hammered into my head that worldly people were gonna be my downfall and cause my death. So I was really afraid of people out in the real world. And I realized after a while I didn't have to carry a knife in my pocket. No one was coming to get me. No one was going to track me down, follow me, and stab me or shoot me or anything like that. So I relaxed about that, and then I thought, well, I met a whole bunch of really nice people that weren't Jehovah's Witnesses, and I always was taught that they were evil and godless and always trying to do evil, But there's so many people out in the real world that are true followers of Christ, and it made me realize, that was when I realized how many more things have they lied to me about. And then I went through a time where I was really angry at my parents. I was angry at them for telling me those things were true, making me believe that that's the way it was, when they didn't join the organization till they were in their early 20s, so they knew that there were good people in the world. So how come they didn't tell us that? We were just raised to believe that everybody in the world was doing evil and was doomed, and they wanted to kill you and all of that, I didn't know any better, because I was purposely isolated from the general public. You can't be their friends. You can't associate with them at school. Even if you have a job, you're not supposed to be friendly to them. Speak to them if you have to, and that's it. And they were just send you down the wrong trail. But you see, when a person leaves the Watchtower organization, number one, God's pretty portable, and He goes with you. If you believe in God and you have faith in God and Jesus, then they go with you wherever you go. Just because you leave an organization doesn't mean that they don't go with you. And that took a while to sink in too, because I was afraid that when I had my daughter's first birthday, I was scared that I was going to be struck dead by a bolt of lightning coming out of the sky, because I was angering God by having a little birthday thing for my daughter. How cruel is that to do to people? And if the organization is supposed to prepare you for every good work, like they say the Bible does and stuff, then how come you're not prepared to live in the real world? You have to function in the real world. And I didn't even know who to go to or how to go to people for help for different things out in the real world. I wasn't taught those things. I was taught that the world was going to end before I graduated high school, and so everything after high school, even the thought of going to college, well, you can't go to college because the the system isn't going to last long enough for you to finish college, and so you're always fed these doom and gloom, doom and gloom and fear and all that, and there was just so many things that I was taught that were wrong, and I had to find out on my own. Some people don't understand what it's like to grow up in a cult and have people feed that kind of information to you until you believe it, Like the Jehovah's Witnesses today, they are told over and over and over and over again, we are a happy people. We're happy, we're so happy. They say it all the time, we're such a happy people. And they're told that so many times that they start saying it themselves until they believe it. That, oh yeah, we're a happy people. But what about the ones that are committing suicide? And the children that are left homeless as minors because you don't want to be that religion. My parents would not even give me the time of day if I called them. They would say, I can't talk to you, and hang up. There wasn't caller ID back then, so they had to answer the phone. So I'd say hello, and they'd say, oh, I can't talk to you, and they'd hang up. It wasn't until my daughter was 3 years old and I got married for the first time that they actually were spending much time with her, and kept her overnight once. But they wouldn't do anything with me. You can't eat in the same room. You can't talk to them. They say in the Bible, actually, I think it says that you should treat that person like you would a government official, for instance. I think they said tax collector, but same thing. So if they ran across a tax collector, I'll just use that. Say they ran across a tax collector with a broke down car on the side of the road. Would they help them? Oh yeah, because they'd say, oh, it's a terrific way to witness to people, is being nice to them, right? But then if their child calls and says, the kids are hungry, or we're stranded, or something like that, they will not help you. They will not. They won't loan you money. They won't help you with food. They won't. They don't care if you're homeless. They don't care if you go hungry. Even the grandchildren. Okay, take punishment out on me, but why couldn't the kids go to spend the weekends at grandma's? Why couldn't the kids be sent a ticket to go spend the summer with the grandparents? Or, anything, but there was just nothing. No cards, no letters, no phone calls. It was all on our end, where the kids would say, well, I want to call grandma. Okay. But they weren't calling and finding out how the grandkids were. They went around telling people, oh yeah, I have grandkids, but they don't say, oh yeah, we never see them. They'll brag about the grandkids, show pictures to people that we sent them, but they're not putting forth the effort to be in their life that much, and why? The big deal is that you believe in God and have faith, and really that doesn't amount to much unless you're actually a JW in good standing. Then we will help you with anything. They would bend over backwards. They'd probably throw a whole congregational party if their kid decided to come back and join the org, but can't live in an organization and pretend to get along with those people if they're teaching things that aren't right. But you cannot tell a Jehovah's Witness that what they believe is not right or not biblical or scriptural. You can show it to them in the Bible, and they will deny it. They will say you're wrong. They'll think up of reasons to say that it's wrong, because you cannot teach them anything. They know it all. Unless you are listening to what they have to say, they don't want to talk to you. So if you say, well, I have something that I want to show you, they go, oh no, I don't want to hear about that. But if you pretend that you're listening to what they have to say, oh yeah, they'll invite you to dinner. They'll pay to send your kids to a movie. I mean, they'll do anything if you're listening to them. But if you ask them questions about their teachings or anything like that, no, they won't talk to you at all. My father showed up at my front door. I moved 850 miles south from my parents. And 23 years after I left, he shows up at my front door. Somebody says, hey, your dad's at the gate. And I was like, my dad? And I went out there. Sure enough, there he stood. And I invited him in. I gave him coffee and a donut. And I was going to be a better person than the way he would treat me. And I gave him coffee and a donut, and we had this like a 2-hour discussion. Him telling me that he wanted to be involved in my children's lives, and he wanted to be their grandfather and all this. And then it boiled down to, well, have you ever thought of coming back? And I said, no. And he left the next day, and my kids never heard from him. For wanting to be in their life and everything, he made zero effort. No phone calls, no letters, no presents because I love you, or nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just because I didn't want to go back, he'll treat the grandchildren that way. I don't know how it was with my brother and his kids, but it was that way with me and my kids. My kids, they liked him, when they saw my parents, they liked them and everything, but they never really understood how a cult makes them treat their children. And if somebody doesn't understand, take a look through articles like the PTSD, religion-related PTSD, and see what those people go through. It's post-traumatic religious or church. I forget the name of it. Off the top of my head, but it's church-related PTSD, basically. They have a name for it. Church trauma. Something like that. But, like I say, it bothered me for years. And it always found a way of creeping itself into there. And so when people come out of the organization, they can't expect that a month after they get out that everything's going to be fine and they're going to be unindoctrinated and have everything, all their ducks in a row. It doesn't happen that way. There's things that you have to learn, that you have to go through. There's things that hold you back that you might need therapy for. There's things that you have trouble doing you might need counseling for. And, it goes on and on. Some people need medication for depression. I was depressed for years. They diagnosed me as with dysthymia because I just had depression all the time. I was on depression meds for years. And it wasn't until really after I went through the ordeal with cancer that I actually came around to straight thinking. So it was about 17 years, after I got out, that I finally came to terms with what they had done and did. And I came to terms with the anger and all that. And it was like the depression disappeared with my cancer. It was like it all disappeared together. And when I got onto the internet and I realized that there were so many thousands and thousands of people that had been through the exact same thing, had been told the exact same thing by the elders, been treated the same way, told the same things, I was like, when is this going to stop? Why they tell people, oh yeah, well we've changed we've adjusted our policies and we've updated them, and they tell you all this stuff. No, they haven't. If they told me that 36 years ago and now they're still doing it today, they haven't changed anything. So people got to speak up and say, hey, got to do something about that and help these people, because they come out of that organization damaged. Their families are destroyed for generations. It destroyed 3 generations of my family just by my parents joining it. It's just no good. And Jehovah's Witnesses, if you're listening, Russia did not ban Jehovah's Witnesses because they use the name Jehovah or anything like that. The reason they banned you, one of the reasons, is because you destroy every family you touch, is pulled apart and destroyed. And family is the core of society. And the Russian people don't want their society being destroyed like the United States. I don't think it's fair either. But I just had to speak up and say something. So when I started my YouTube channel, and I started from the beginning and told people what I've been through and what I was told and what happened and where I went, what I did, life could have been so much better if our family was all together. But people get their own ideas. I figured at first I'd just let my parents do what they were going to do because they're adults, it's their decision, whatever. And I never said anything to them. But now that they're gone, I regret not saying anything to them about it. Because maybe I could have woken them up. Maybe my Jehovah's Witness mother wouldn't have tried to kill herself 5 times if the Watchtower hadn't destroyed their family. If she could have had things different. Instead of calling them up and saying, oh, I can't talk, and hanging up on their kids. What would life have been like? But anyway, I just wanted to say, people talk about Watchtower and how bad it is, but not a whole lot of people talk about what you have to go through emotionally, psychologically, mentally. It's a long road. And don't think you're going to be cured in a month. It takes a long time to get past those things. And if you need counseling or therapy, do it. Don't be afraid. Don't feel bad because you're doing it. Don't feel guilty or ashamed or anything. Be proud of going, because it's going to help you and your family. So do it and be proud about going. Don't be ashamed of going or afraid to tell people. Tell people, yeah, I went to counseling. I went to counseling twice for those reasons I told you. If you have to, you have to. And it is good. My cat's playing with a box. Lucky, stop. No, he's going to go back to playing with the box. I don't know if you can see him down there. See him down there? He's playing with that box. I don't know, cats in boxes. But anyway, I'll talk more about it later. But all these XJWs out here, if you're tired and exhausted dealing with Watchtower stuff all the time, take a break, restore your soul, get some rest, and then come back and fight another day, because there's other people that are pulling up the slack if you need to rest. You got to think about yourself. You know, take care of yourself, do what's right for you, get help if you need it, and everything turns out all right in the end. You know, just stick with it and stay tough.